The courtroom doors exploded open so hard they struck the marble wall with a thunderous crack. Every head turned. Rainwater dripped onto the polished floor from the shoes of a trembling black man in torn clothes, his hands shaking, his breathing uneven, his eyes carrying the weight of years no one had bothered to see. Gasps rippled through the room. Someone whispered, "Security, get him out." But before anyone could move, the judge stood up. Not in anger, in shock, because he recognized him. And in that instant, everything everyone believed about the man was wrong. Outside, the city had been drowning all morning. Rain slid down skyscraper windows like tears the sky refused to hold back. Cars hissed across soaked asphalt. Umbrellas bloomed like dark flowers. The courthouse steps gleamed like glass, reflecting a world that hurried past suffering without slowing. And there on the bottom step sat the man no one noticed. His name was Elijah Ward, but no one knew that. To the passing crowd, he was just another homeless man. His coat was patched with thread of different colors. His shoes were worn thin at the soles. His beard had grown unevenly, and rain clung to it like frost. His fingers trembled, not from cold, but from exhaustion so deep it had become part of him. People avoided eye contact. A woman pulled her child closer. A businessman stepped around him as if he were a puddle. 2 teenagers laughed. Elijah didn't react. He simply watched the courthouse doors. Not begging, not pleading, waiting. The second hand on the courthouse clock ticked. Each tick echoed like a heartbeat in a silent room. Inside, a high-profile case was unfolding. Reporters filled the benches. Cameras waited outside. The city's elite sat in the gallery, their coats expensive, their watches gleaming, their faces calm with the certainty that justice always looked like them. At the center sat Judge Harold Whitmore, a man known across the state for his iron rulings and his reputation for fairness. No one questioned him. No one challenged him. And today's hearing would decide the fate of a billion-dollar corporate lawsuit. Powerful people leaned forward. Lawyers shuffled papers. The air smelled of polished wood and expensive perfume. Then, the doors burst open. The sound froze the room. Heads turned. Security guards stepped forward. And in the doorway stood Elijah. Water dripped from his coat onto the marble. His chest rose and fell. His eyes searched the room like someone trying to find a memory before it disappeared forever. Murmurs spread. Who let him in? Is this a protester? Someone remove him. One guard grabbed his arm. Elijah didn't resist. He just said softly, I need to speak. The guard tightened his grip. This is a federal courtroom. You don't belong here. A few people chuckled. A reporter whispered to her cameraman, This will go viral. Another voice from the gallery muttered, Look at him, probably drunk. But Elijah's gaze never left the judge. And that was when it happened. Judge Whitmore stood. Not slowly, not cautiously, abruptly. The room fell silent. Because judges don't stand for intruders. Judges don't stare like they've seen ghosts. Judges don't whisper. Elijah? The rain outside stopped. As if even the storm wanted to listen. No one understood. Not the lawyers. Not the reporters. Not the crowd. But the judge did. Because 30 years earlier, before the robes, before the title, before the authority, Harold Whitmore had been a scared law student with no money, no connections, and no future. And the man standing in the doorway had saved his life. The memory struck him like lightning. A subway platform, a panic attack, a collapsing world, and a stranger's steady voice saying, You're not alone, son. Breathe. That stranger had stayed with him for 3 hours, bought him coffee, told him stories, told him he mattered, then disappeared before Harold could even ask his name. But Harold never forgot the face, never forgot the voice, never forgot the kindness. And now, that same face stood in his courtroom, soaked, shaking, unwanted. The gallery didn't see history. They saw a nuisance. One attorney leaned toward another and whispered, This is ridiculous. Throw him out. A woman in pearls frowned in disgust. A man in a tailored suit muttered, This is why security should be stricter. Prejudice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it sighs. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it wears a smile while deciding someone's worth. The guard pulled Elijah's arm again. Out. Elijah stumbled slightly. Still, he didn't resist. He only looked at the judge and said quietly, "I came because you once told me truth belongs in rooms like this." The words hit the judge like a bell ringing inside his chest. Thump, thump, thump. Judge Whitmore raised his hand. "Let him speak." Gasps. Lawyers exchanged looks. A reporter scribbled frantically. The guard hesitated. "Your Honor, he's—" I said let him speak. The courtroom froze. Authority had spoken. Elijah stepped forward slowly. Each footstep echoed across the marble floor like a drum beat in an empty hall. He looked small beneath the towering ceiling, fragile beneath the chandeliers, unimportant beneath the gaze of wealth and power. But when he spoke, his voice carried. "I know what I look like." No one moved. "I know what you see." A pause. "You see a man who lost everything." Another pause. "You're right." The room held its breath. "I had a home once," he continued. "A job, a family, a name people respected." He swallowed. "Then one day, I told the truth about something powerful people didn't want exposed." A lawyer shifted. A reporter leaned forward. "And overnight," Elijah said softly, "I became invisible." The gallery's expressions began to change. "Not sympathy yet, just curiosity." He continued. "They said I was lying. They said I was crazy. They said I was dangerous." His eyes lifted. "But truth doesn't disappear because people close their eyes." Silence. Another step forward. "Sometimes it waits years." Judge Whitmore's fingers tightened on the bench. He felt it. Something was coming. Something bigger than interruption. Sunlight broke through the rain clouds outside, sending a single beam through the high courtroom window. It landed directly on Elijah, like a spotlight. Elijah reached into his coat. Security tensed. Hands moved toward holsters. Gasps spread. Slowly. He pulled out a sealed envelope. Old, worn, protected carefully. He held it up. "This," he said, "is evidence that proves the corporation in this trial built its fortune on stolen technology." The courtroom erupted. Lawyers shouted. Reporters stood. The judge slammed his gavel. "Order!" Elijah's voice rose, not loud, but powerful. "I should know. I invented it." Silence detonated. One attorney laughed. "That's absurd." Another scoffed. "A homeless inventor, please?" But the judge didn't laugh. Because he remembered. That subway night? The calm voice. The intelligence in his words. The quiet dignity. Elijah opened the envelope. Inside were patents, signatures, dates, original schematics, legal stamps, authentic, undeniable. The judge leaned forward. His voice dropped to a whisper. "How did you lose everything?" Elijah answered simply, "Because I refused to sell my name." You could hear people breathing. That's how quiet it became. The wealthy spectators who had mocked him now stared. Not at a homeless man, at a possibility they hadn't considered. One woman slowly lowered her sunglasses. A man loosened his tie. Another looked down at his polished shoes, suddenly ashamed of how he had stepped around someone outside. Prejudice often dies the moment truth enters the room. Elijah spoke again. Years earlier, he explained, he had designed a revolutionary energy system while working as a junior engineer. His company promised recognition. Instead, they erased him. They filed patents in their own name. When he protested, they buried him in lawsuits, bankrupted him, blacklisted him, took his career, took his reputation, took his life. But they couldn't take the truth, he said. Judge Whitmore's voice trembled. "Why come now?" Elijah smiled faintly. "Because today, you're deciding their biggest case, and I knew you were the one man who would listen. The subway platform. The young student. The steady voice. You matter." The judge removed his glasses. For the first time in years, his eyes shone with emotion. "You saved me once," he said quietly. Murmurs. Reporters scribbled faster. "You reminded me I had value when I couldn't see it myself." He stood straighter. "If this man says he has evidence, this court will examine it." The courtroom shifted. Power had just changed sides. The same guard who had grabbed Elijah's arm now stepped back respectfully. The same spectators who had judged him now leaned forward with attention. The same reporters who wanted a spectacle now sensed history. Elijah didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply stood, dignified, calm, whole. A clerk carried the documents to the bench. Each step echoed like destiny approaching. Minutes passed as the judge reviewed the papers. The silence stretched so long it felt like time itself had stopped breathing. Then, Judge Whitmore looked up. His voice shook. "These documents are authentic." Gasps. "They prove intellectual property theft and deliberate suppression of the inventor's identity." The corporate lawyers froze. The gallery erupted, but the judge raised his hand. "And that inventor is Mr. Elijah Ward." The room exploded. Reporters rushed out. Phones rang. Cameras flashed through the windows. The world was about to know. The judge stood, not as a judge, as a man. He stepped down from the bench and walked toward Elijah. Every eye followed. Every breath waited. He stopped in front of him. Then he extended his hand. Not out of duty, out of respect. "Welcome back," he said. Elijah looked at the hand. For a moment, years of pain flickered in his eyes. Then he took it. The handshake echoed louder than thunder. The same people who had mocked him now stood. One by one, not ordered, not instructed, moved. Respect is contagious when truth is undeniable. Soon, the entire courtroom was standing. For a man they had dismissed minutes earlier. Sunlight flooded the courtroom windows. The storm was gone. Outside, news vans lined the street. Headlines spread. "Homeless man proves he's inventor behind billion-dollar tech." But inside, something deeper had happened. Not a legal victory, a human one. The judge returned to the bench. "This court will reopen proceedings. And Mr. Ward, you will be heard." Elijah nodded once, not triumphant, peaceful. Later, as people filed out, a young girl lingered near the aisle. Her name was Maya. She had watched everything from the back row beside her mother. She stepped forward shyly. Elijah noticed her. She held out something small, a folded napkin. Inside was a simple drawing. It showed a stick-figure man standing under rain, with sunlight breaking above him. She whispered, "You're strong." Elijah's eyes softened. Because children see truth faster than adults. That evening, Elijah walked down the courthouse steps again. But this time, people didn't step around him. They stepped aside. Not out of avoidance, out of respect. Cars, buildings, noise. But something invisible had changed. Because one truth spoken with courage can rewrite how the world sees a person. We judge in seconds what took a lifetime to build. We see clothes, not character. We see struggle, not strength. But dignity doesn't disappear when life gets hard. Truth doesn't fade when ignored. And worth is never decided by appearance. Because every person you pass is a story you haven't heard yet. If this story moved you, if it made you see people differently, then carry that feeling forward. Share this story so more hearts can open. And tell me in the comments, have you ever misjudged someone or been misjudged yourself?